Welcome to the Optimal Bio podcast. At Optimal Bio, we don't just balance your hormones, we balance your whole body. Our conversations range from nutrition to medicine with an emphasis on wellness tips to support your health journey. If you like what you hear, find us on the web at optimalbio.com and follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Thank you for joining another episode of the Optimal Bio podcast. For the next few months, we will be talking with the Optimal Bio providers, which I am so excited about as they are such a wealth of knowledge. Today, I am joined with Irene Burns. She is the PA in our Pinehurst or Southern Pines office, whichever you refer it. And we are talking today about stress and cortisol and the good and the bad of it and how hormones help and supplements help and sleep helps. So we're excited to talk about that. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me. Okay, so first, everybody right now thinks cortisol is a bad thing and it's negative, but it's not. We need it. It keeps us alive. It does a lot of good. Like most things, moderation.
Yes.
You don't want too little, you don't want too much. But one of the big things it does is it gives us energy, like throughout. Our brain needs it. How it does that is it increases your blood glucose levels. So good at normal levels. But if you have constant cortisol and that glucose is constantly high, then you risk insulin resistance, which diabetes, hypertension, neurodegenerative diseases, all the things. Also, cortisol or stress can be good in some ways, but too much cortisol can be neurotoxic because cortisol passes that blood-brain barrier. So it's not always bad. You need it to be alive, but too much is bad.
Exactly. That's why, it's like cortisol is terrible. How to lower it. And it's like, yes, in this day and age that we'll get into, it can be higher sometimes or just that constant high. But people miss the key part that it keeps you alive. And being alive is pretty important, I would say.
I would agree. I mean, it keeps you alive, but it does so much more. Like it, at the right levels, it's anti-inflammatory.
Yep.
Too much, the opposite, which we don't want chronic inflammation, we all know. I mean, it does everything. Like it really does.
Exactly. So, we talk all the time about how inflammation is the root cause of most diseases, cancers, brain fog, fatigue. But talk about how cortisol is anti-inflammatory.
So initially at like low levels, it'll like not suppress, it releases like the good anti-inflammatory, but then if you have it too high, those kind of become resistant, if you will, and it releases the others that cause the inflammation throughout. Acute inflammation is always good. It is. That's how we heal ourselves. But when it's constant, it does start affecting you at a cellular, the DNA level, all of that. So you don't want that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And two, just lifestyle, stress always gets a bad rap. And again, stress can be good and it kind of motivates us and that's what you learn from. So I think cortisol is like how our body, science more, but stress also, I think it's a good reminder that stress is not always bad and we need that. Like I always say, like, do you just want like this constant life, no peaks or valleys? It's pretty boring.
I agree. Like we need those emotions, like up, down, stress. We need it all.
Exactly. So I think sometimes knowing like, oh, stress is not always bad, then mentally you'll probably calm down a little bit and can manage that stress better.
Because imagine you're like scrolling on Instagram and all you hear about is how bad cortisol is. And you're sitting there like, oh my God, oh my God.
Exactly. I think you just need to get off and stop scrolling Instagram.
I mean, I would agree because that also affects the blue light levels affect your sleep on top. And who doesn't doom? Well, I wouldn't say who doesn't, but most people doom scroll right before bed, which is complete opposite what you should be doing.
In so many ways. So let's kind of jump into if your cortisol levels are, in ranges that may cause chronic inflammation, they're too high, you feel like you're constantly just kind of stressed or not being able to focus, kind of dive down. We'll start if, how to, hormones play a role of helping cortisol get back to the ranges that your body intended for it to be.
So cortisol is reactive, right? Like it's a reactive hormone, but we need it. But if initially when we get that cortisol raise, we have this hypothalamic pituitary axis between our gonad through everything, gonads, adrenals, all of the things. So when cortisol raises, it will suppress your at the hypothalamus level the thyroid releasing hormone as well as the gonadotropin releasing hormone, which then affects your thyroid, which we know we need for many things, but also your sex hormones. So when you have a suppressed thyroid, what can happen? The fatigue is very similar to like the low T, right? But it's going to be fatigue, probably like some weight gain, brain fog, joint pains, inability to regulate your temperature, things like that. And as that's being suppressed, your cortisol continues to rise because it's like, hey, something's going on here, more stress on the internal, like physical or physiologic part. But then that also suppresses testosterone and estrogen production. And that kind of it's like a vicious cycle, right? So like the cortisol continues to rise while your other hormones suppress or continue to drop. So it's like, where do we start? If we, and we've seen it, like if we replace or fix the others, the thyroid and the sex hormones, that cortisol oftentimes will just reset itself. And so that's one of the big things.
Because we have, say some patients or people that call in that want to, test their cortisol or curious about a cortisol stuff that will help their, cortisol levels. So can you kind of talk to like, when do we do specific cortisol testing? What does that look like? Because like you said, if you get your sex hormones and your thyroid hormone balance, usually it will heal cortisol on its own.
What I always tell them, and especially like initially, because I explain the whole HPG, HPA axis and about the reactive type that cortisol is. So I'm like, you want me to test your cortisol now? It's likely going to be high. And I'm still going to tell you, let's fix this first. So it's a waste of your money and time because it's probably high. Let's fix this. Once this is balanced, if you're still having these symptoms, if your cortisol doesn't reset, let's check it then. And for that, we do the saliva testing, not the blood testing. Why is that? Well, one, the saliva testing, it's 4 different times throughout the day, and our cortisol naturally, there's a natural curve. Like it should peak right after you wake up, and then there's a gradual slope pretty much all day. We want to see that. If I'm just drawing your blood once, I'm getting one draw. Like, how do I know where you're peaking? How do I know? But the other thing is I don't know about you, but when I get my blood drawn, I already am a little stressed. But then that needle pokes you, and your cortisol, it's not going to be as accurate.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's what's so important. We could talk about, this on repeat, but just understanding the role of hormones naturally helps our body be calmer, be able to react to things because of how they work in our body.
Yes. And in our world, we are like most of us are constantly stressed because it's not just like, oh, work stressful or this is there's like stuff coming at us all the time. Social media, we have all the things. Sleep is key, I think. It really is. And most people have the worst sleep hygiene, myself included. I try, but sleep hygiene is key because if you are spiking that cord, like I said, it's supposed to be low before bed. If you're spiking it, you're not going to get that good spike. It's going to blunt that spike in the morning, and then it's going to affect the rest of it. So you're going to have those like mid-afternoon slumps, all the things that we complain about.
Absolutely. And that's what, if we don't have sleep, everything else is going to fall apart. It's the one time our body can heal our brain, clean out the bad cells, clean out the sick cells, like fully digest. And if so, it's like you can take all the supplements, work out, eat well, but if you're not sleeping, your body is going to be in that constant fight or flight mode, your inflammation is going to increase. And we know if you don't sleep, you're going to have more sugar cravings. You're not going to be able to recover in the gym as well as you can. So it just all compounds on each other.
Yes. And it's also like where our testosterone starts like peaking at, like the IGF, all the things, the growth hormone. So sleep is key for literally everything anyway, period. So
everything. And of course, I'm going to, people like, of course you're going to say this, you work at Optimal Bio, but testosterone, like we could talk about testosterone over and over because it helps with everything. That's why if we talk about, like, you can't talk about cortisol without talking about your hormones, and without testosterone, and really for people to understand that.
oh my gosh, testosterone, that also gets kind of a bad rap sometimes. More people are starting to understand what it does and where it comes from, which is great. But men and women need it, not just men. And that's like a huge thing. I'm not going to go into women right now because I can talk about that forever and how all the hormones and everything were just kind of, oh, you're fine, here's some Zoloft. But we need it as well. It affects everything.
Exactly. Like when every cell has a testosterone receptor in both men and women, why would we not? Or just knowing that, oh, we think that women need more estrogen because when you get your labs back, it's in two different measurements.
Yes. But also, where does estradiol come from?
Exactly. Testosterone.
Exactly. That comes from it. We don't just randomly make it. So,
And kind of like a misconception about testosterone, which I think it's changing, which is great to see just the conversation about hormones. But people think of like testosterone and roid rage. And I'm like, actually, testosterone does the opposite. It calms your body. It calms your mood.
it is, I love explaining that to people. And I'm like, would you like me to tell you typically what that roid rage is from? And they're like, what? Estrogen. Why? Testosterone converts to DHT and estrogen. When you have huge peaks of that testosterone with injections, for instance, your testosterone drops fairly quickly, but your estrogen doesn't. So think about the women in your life at certain times of their menstrual cycle when their estrogen is highest. That's when they're most irritable and angry.
When do we see, guys talk about their mood irritability? It's when they have low testosterone.
Yes. And yeah, what happens when your testosterone's low and your cortisol's high? You start getting midsection weight. What happens with those fat cells? More estrogen.
We always tell, if we're talking to some random person or we tell our patients, friends, family, like, yes, hormones are the foundation of your health and everything builds on it. But if we give you hormones and then you stay up till 3 a.m., you go eat McDonald's and you don't go outside, we're missing so many pieces.
100%. It's not magic. It's literally just replenishing what you don't have, but you have to make your lifestyle changes. Some of the big ones, of course, are like sleep, but also your diet. Especially here, we're so used to like the fast, convenient stuff that is the worst for you. We need to be getting the whole foods. But again, the blue light thing. When we wake up in the morning, we should not be grabbing our phone. Sunlight is really sunlight. And if you can't get sunlight when you wake up, those 10,000 lux light lamps that you can get, literally the first 30 minutes, it will help bump your cortisol peak in the morning. But only there's a small window where it does that because there's a whole thing with like the neurons in your eyes and it's a very small period. So if you are not getting that sunlight or that light in the morning, you won't help peak that in the morning. But let's see, other things, exercise, of course. But it's very interesting because some people would want to work out in the evening. So what does that do typically? Cortisol can increase, I mean, your exercise can increase your cortisol. But if you do the same exercises consistently, like if you're a strength trainer or bodybuilder, yes, you're going to have a little peak. But if you're doing random exercises in the evening that you don't typically do, that's definitely going to peak that cortisol even higher. So ideally, we will exercise in the morning rather than the evening. But some people with their schedule understand. And then the other big one is caffeine. Okay. Yes, if you're one of those people who cannot or has caffeine and you feel it, you feel the big rush, please do not drink it after like 12. Other people who can drink it up until bedtime, fine, but still not fine because what it does is it prolongs the cortisol peak, but it's not making it any higher. All the studies show that. Let's see. Cold exposure, that's another one that's kind of getting like a bad rap. Initially, yes, you're going to have the cortisol peaks, but after you're like a habitual user, like cold plunges and things, no, it does not increase your cortisol. So it has other benefits as well, like the inflammation and stuff. I prefer, honestly, like I have a cold plunge at home, and I 100% prefer going to cryotherapy than getting in the cold plunge.
Well, that's interesting. And I think I could try that more than getting in a cold plunge.
It's just, I don't know. Yeah, like you could do it. Like I don't know, but I prefer cryo. Yeah.
Any supplements or hydration that you think would play a role?
We should be hydrating first thing in the morning, like with water and some electrolytes before we drink our morning coffee and things. And make sure you're hydrated throughout the day, of course. Supplements, there are a ton out there. Ashwagandha, L-theanine. The ashwagandha has been actually shown to lower your cortisol levels. L-theanine helps relax you. Um, you can vitamin D 100% always because most people are deficient anyway or low, and vitamin D does help with like inflammation and it does help with that. Let's see what else we could do. There are things you should avoid or do in moderation, and one of the big ones is licorice, black licorice. I do want to say that. What is that one? Tomcat ollie also has shown for the cortisol, but it's supposed to help increase your testosterone levels as well a little. Valerian root, we use it's an essential oil that's got valerian root at night. We like it. Big, big, big. Prebiotics, probiotics. Why is that? Gut health. Or if you like fermented foods, that's good too. But gut health. Cortisol, it wrecks our gut, the lining of our gut, and then things that aren't supposed to be in our bloodstream do leak out, which we call leaky gut. Um, Mainstream media or mainstream medicine typically will not say leaky gut, but your gut is leaking. Um, it's leaking, and then you have more things that come with that. So heal your gut.
And people also, I don't think, realize that the majority of your serotonin and dopamine is created in your gut.
Like, what about our thyroid? T4, Um, that's another reason it doesn't just suppress the production, but it suppresses that conversion. And then we convert more when we do have our T3, we convert more to reverse T3. And for people who don't know the difference between them, reverse T3 acts as like a brake, where T3 is your gas, if you will. So
Yeah, Just Thrive has an incredible probiotic and prebiotic. They have one specifically that like says calm on it, but because it's like a soil based probiotic. But someone's looking for a good probiotic, definitely check that one out.
that's good.
And I would say something to avoid that no one wants to hear. Yeah,
Alcohol, that's a big one. Many people drink alcohol thinking it's going to calm them, but it actually does the opposite. It increases your cortisol response. You might fall asleep, but it's not good sleep, and it's just like a whole vicious cycle again. Alcohol, decrease your intake. I will never tell anybody to go cold turkey on alcohol because that is the only drug, if you will, that you can have a fatal withdrawal from. So please drink in moderation anyway, but wean yourself.
I've, like, should we go back to the science of it? Just some, nuts and bolts of it. But, kind of just rounding out cortisol, how hormones play a role, and some takeaways for people to help them, feel better tomorrow, Monday, next week, because people need to remember that wellness is a journey and building, right? Because you want to make sure, like, you can build it and you're not going to do too many things at one time and then just get overwhelmed by trying to feel better.
Well, the big takeaway with that, like you said, it's building. In our world, we're so used to like instant gratification. Wellness should not be instant gratification. It's taken a long time to get where we're looking for help because something's wrong. Things that promise like, oh, tomorrow you're going to feel great are likely not a good fix. You have to put in the time and effort as well. So, one of the other things I forgot to mention, we were talking about testosterone and estrogen, but progesterone. Okay. I love progesterone. I call it our happy hormone. Um, but testosterone, or not testosterone, everything does come from cholesterol and it goes down this steroid pathway. Progesterone and cortisol. If our cortisol or our stress levels are high, that cholesterol is going to convert more to cortisol than it is progesterone. So it's going to suppress that progesterone production, anyways. And people that already have low progesterone, perimenopause, PCOS, it's going to hit you a little harder just because you're not making that. So that's what I forgot to talk about earlier.
What about if you're on birth control?
Oh, that's already like you have nothing. It suppresses your own production everywhere, but it's kind of confusing your brain into thinking that you're still producing. So it is going to be way worse. Like it will be.
It's a nice little firestorm in your body.
All of the things. So things that we should be doing, even if you're like just listening and you're like, okay, I'm super stressed. First thing when you wake up in the morning, the daylight, right? Like the sunlight or that the lamp. Hydration, if you can, exercise in the morning. Um, it's hard because I don't want to tell people like, oh, you can only exercise in the morning, but ideally that's when you're going to exercise. Avoid like your processed foods, things like that. Lower your sugar intake, like the bad sugars. We still need carbs and things. And then at bedtime, sleep hygiene. Avoid the blue light, please. Eat dinner a couple hours before you go to bed. And then definitely, if you're during the day, if you're stressed, like breathing exercises they're amazing. Really, they are. It really does reset. Like the deep breathing, take a big breath and breathe out through your mouth. There's tons of YouTube videos you can go find on how to do all the different types of breathing, but just a simple deep breath, like there's a sigh where you take it in and you take in that last little sip or breath that you don't think you have, and then you let it out. And it does help.
And that's funny you say that because people don't realize that we don't really take a deep breath during the day. And so now like I just like constantly try to just like breathe and you do just kind of settle.
Yeah, it's a simple and quick. That one is a quick like, okay, let me reset.
Right. And when you mentioned cholesterol and foods to eat, I forgot to mention really focusing on fats and good proteins make a huge difference in stress levels.
Yes, because again, I said a second ago, everything comes from, well, all of our hormones come from cholesterol. Cholesterol it's not bad, just like cortisol isn't bad. We need it for our hormones, but it also, like 95% of our brain is cholesterol. So if we're decreasing that too much,
When I tell people that, they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah. So do you still want to keep lowering your cholesterol? Like, probably not.
oh my, we can talk about blood pressure too. They just lowered and I'm like, the lower it is doesn't mean good. Your blood is not.
And the people who lower it are the insurance companies. It's not doctors, scientists. Exactly.
What benefit do they get when it's lowered? Oh, you can prescribe this and more money.
And then prescribe something else and then something else. Yes.
It's just a whole cascade. It's frustrating, honestly. It is.
It is because our bodies are incredible. And if we give them the right things, and sometimes it's like trial and error, right? That's just life. You're going to feel good and you're going to feel better. But sometimes I feel like there's just so much noise out there. So it's like, where do you start? And it can be pretty simple things. It takes time and you have to put in the effort. But to feel well is just like focusing on the basics, like hormones, walking, working out, eating right, drinking, sleeping. You don't have to go on all these fads.
It's like the simple, it's because I think they're too simple sometimes. And people are like, that can't be it, but really it is. Our bodies, I think they're pretty cool. Like they like, how are we here? Like they don't,
I sometimes think about that, like just sitting there, like, what are my bodies doing just so that I'm currently sitting here?
like it knows what to do when it has the appropriate tools.
Exactly. I know sometimes, like, people ask what I do or talking about hormones or whatever it may be. I can tell like they start kind of glazing over when I tell them like all the things that hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone do in our brain. And I'm like, hey, like I'm not making that up. Like they're chemical messengers. Like it were what formed us and keep us moving every day.
It is amazing. Like when you get your hormones and everything in balance, the way you feel, it's like I hate to tell people because it sounds so silly, but like I'm like, it's really life changing. You feel like yourself. But it sounds silly, like I don't know, I feel like I'm a TV commercial, so I don't say.
Exactly. I'm like, I just like you feel much better. Like you feel good. Like you just kind of run through the day. Exactly. And then once they like, yeah, get on treatment, they're like, oh, and it's like, yeah, like not just like, it's not an infomercial. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like the hardest one because I'm always like, I don't know how to tell you that you're gonna feel like normal.
Exactly. Normal. That's why I try to say like every cell has a testosterone receptor to try to be like, is that tangible to be like your body needs it for everything.
Yeah, everything. So everything works together. Like it all works together. If anything's off, the other things are going to be affected.
And I think that's such a key point because we forget that, or if you go to the doctor for something, they're looking at one specific part of your body, right? But everything works together, and you can't look at one without the other or try to, like talking about proteins and fats for cholesterol and cortisol, like that has to be part of the conversation.
Yeah. Or like when they do that, when you're focused on one thing, okay, let me fix this one little symptom that you have because maybe, I don't know, your gut. But then they give you a medication that it affects everything else because they're all supposed to be working together. They really like, yeah,
And why gut health is so important because it connects your entire body.
it's amazing. It really, like, when you really think about it, like our whole body is, but like the gut and the brain, the way they work, it's just,
And they work together. Like when people are like, oh, it's the second brain, it's like, yes. I'm like, when you were in utero, the same tissue that created your brain created your gut.
I think that a big thing is that I want people to understand is cortisol, it is not bad. It's not bad. You need it. But just like anything else in excess, it can cause damage down the line. But you do need it. So don't think of it as like the end all be all.
So, well, thank you. I'm like, I know, we could go so many different ways. But I'm like, let's focus on cortisol, focus on what testosterone does, estrogen does for cortisol. But I appreciate it and walking us through the science of it because I think once you understand the science of it or like the surface layer, then it makes sense. And I think it helps to understand the why, to know what to do and why you feel that way and how you feel that way.
I agree. I think that people are accustomed to just focusing on one thing, and that's a big issue now with our health, just in general.
Exactly. Because you're never going to feel better if you're just focusing on one thing. And prevent. We can prevent so many things.
That's what we're doing. Everything else is pretty much reactive. Like, oh, now we'll fix it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Like, yeah, don't you want to feel better? Hopefully not get sick long term.
Yeah. Quality of life is key.
Yep. So I always joke, like when I see people I don't even know, but like say they might be in like their 70s or something, I'm like, he's on testosterone, she's on testosterone. I'm like, you can just tell. It's a different, I feel like, light that you have.
They do because they just feel good. Like you have what you need. You're not depleted. It's people are always like, well, Why is this not given out like by, my doctor? Why? Okay, I have no clue why they refuse to do, well, bioidentical I do, but in general, because I'm like, okay, if you have diabetes, what are they going to do?
Correct. Give you your insulin.
Right? Because what's going on? Your pancreas decided, hey, I'm not working. But when your gonads, your ovaries decide they're not going to work appropriately, no, you're fine. You're just getting old.
It makes no sense.
They'll fix your thyroid or they'll replenish the thyroid, all the things, but not the big ones. Well, I think they're bigger, but.
Yeah. Oh, I've always said, like, I would give up all my hormones just to have testosterone. Like,
we all know, like, our word recall, everything's super like, wow, what's going on?
exactly. It's like, oh wait, why is my brain not working? Why can't I remember things? Why do I feel more stressed?
Exactly.
Well, thank you. This was great and so helpful.
Thank you.
This has been a production of Optimal Bio. Optimal Bio is CEO Tylar Brannon, Medical Director Greg Brannon, podcast host Tylar Brannon. The podcast can be found on our website, optimalbio.com, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Our theme song is Sunwave by Paradiso, provided by Epidemic Sound.